Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to fill in blonde hair. Mostly blonde hair. You can fill in every other color if you can fill in blonde hair. So today I'm going to be teaching you color filling. I'm not going to be teaching you how to tone, which is a separate video that I'm going to do possibly in the future. I don't know yet. The whole point of this video is to fill in the blonde from the front and make it look as even as possible with the brown that is in the back portion. I'm using all kinds of colors because this is like I had a lot of leftover color in my drawer, so the amount of colors, you don't have to use this many. Genuinely, I was just using this much because some of them were like halfway, some of them were like less than half. So I've been working with color for quite a few years now, and it's a lot easier for me to kind of estimate how much color I need, and it's a lot easier for me to work with it because of the amount of practice. However, you do not need this crazy amount to get this done. So first things first, you need to know the base that you are working with. Basically, it's hair integrity. Is the hair fragile? Is it very porous? Is it very blonde? Is it champagne? Is it platinum? You have to know what base you're working with. You have to know the integrity of the hair. And then of course, see which shade you're working with. If you're working with coppers and you're trying to bring that down to a brown, your hair is already a perfect canvas. If you're working with a pink like me, the pink doesn't really do much. The dye that I'm using is going to lift it off, and then it's just going to have a clean canvas. You can have a clean canvas very easily with pink. In other words, you can remove pink very easily. So do not use pink as a base unless you're using it for like champagne blondes. So once you have that, then you have to see, is my hair neutral, is it warm, or is it cool? And you're going to go based off of that. And typically you're going to fill in with warm colors like reds and golds. If you're filling in for black, you're still going to need a lot of orange in there, which again, there's red in that. Usually almost always you're filling in with red and golds. Other than that, you would use blue for your main shade, not as a fill-in. That can actually leave the hair color looking very hollow and just matte and just gross. You have to decide the integrity of the hair. I mean, you don't decide, but you should kind of pay attention to the integrity of the hair. You're going to see which parts of the hair are more dry than others. If that's the case, it's gonna look a little different from that very porous portion of the hair compared to a part that's a little healthier and more silky. So there are 4 sides to the hair. There's the crown area, which is typically what everybody sees, the back portion, and then there are the sides. With that said, always start where you want the color to be the darkest at. So here, for example, I'm starting off on the sides because it was a little easier for me to section it off this way and then go towards the front. I like to take my time with the front portion because this is a lace wig. If I was working on a client or on my hair, I would probably start at the crown area or at the bottom, depending on what I want the results to look like. So again, start where you want the hair color to be the darkest at. If you're working with human hair, whether it's on a wig or on a person, because it is human hair, the porosity is going to be different regardless of how healthy your hair is. So when you are checking for hair integrity, you are not checking for hair pattern. That is completely separate. That is different. That typically does not interact with the hair color. If anything, you just need to section off completely different. You also have to know the dye you are working with. Just because it says brown, first of all, don't go by the names that you see on the dye. Go by the numbers and go by the brand. Know what brand you're working with. Some brands have more golden browns and other ones are more red, even though they say they have gold in them. Some of them are more orange, some of them are very dark when they're supposed to be like level 5. And then again, according to what final result you are looking for, you are going to fill according to that. If you want a black, you're gonna have to put a 1:1:1 ratio. If you're looking for like a mousy blonde, you're gonna have to fill it in just a little bit with some orange in there, partially red, but mostly golds. The golds are gonna have greens in them. So just keep in mind that if you're using gold, if you don't have any red there, it's gonna look very green. So you can always fill in hair before or after. I know it sounds a little weird. A lot of people do recommend before, and I personally would recommend before to make it easier for you. However, I have gotten into the habit of filling in hair afterwards. I kind of like to see what color I'm working with and then fill in according to that. I always like to do it after to know how much to use and what color to use, because some dyes have more red in them than I actually think they do. So, you know, you don't want it to be too orange if you're expecting like a neutral brown. With that said, how do we even out porosity? The best way to even out porosity, which I feel like is the most important part of this video, is dampening the hair. Here, for example, I wanted a very light effect on the bangs because I wanted a little bit of dimension. I went ahead and wet the bangs completely and I let them kind of very wet actually. They weren't just damp, like if I squeezed them, water was gonna come out of them. So, you know, if you kind of want a very pastel effect on the hair color, you go ahead and wet the hair. It's going to save you time and money. On top of that, it's evening out the porosity. Typically, I work on damp hair. I don't work with super wet or 100% dry. The only time I work with dry hair is if I'm bleaching a very small portion of it, or if I'm working with very crazy vivids. If you have time to work on hair, go ahead and use a brush and bowl. If you are in a rush, go ahead and use a bottle. Just work accurately. Do not try to rush it because you will miss spots and that's going to be very irritating. You're just going to create more work for yourself. It's going to cost you money to get your hair done. So, you know, go to somebody who actually cares about your hair. They will use enough products. I would hope that they're using enough products. If not, just make sure you invest enough into the hair dye. If you do not have enough hair dye, that tends to be another reason why your hair is coming out uneven. Just because you see a little bit of dye on a portion of your hair does not mean it's gonna, you know, dye the same way as the rest of your hair that's like super mushy and wet. So always grab more than you think you need. I tend to like test how much hair dye is on the strand of hair that I'm working with this way. If I'm using my hand, I put the strand of hair between my fingers. It'll just glide smoothly. If there's any like friction, that tells me that there's some dry hair in between the strand and I need to I would separate the hair and I would just add more dye there. And then if I'm using a brush, I would just glide my brush over it. If I feel any friction, most of the time that means that there's portions of the strand that are not dyed. Trust me, I have been doing this for years. If you want your hair even, you need to use more dye than you think you need. If you're putting only so much dye on one portion and then another portion is like super mushy and wet and cold, they're gonna look completely different. So make sure you are using enough product. Invest in it if you actually plan on, you know, doing your hair. Make sure you have even times on, you know, the 4 parts of your hair. The sides, the bottom, and of course the front. The thinner the hair, the smaller the hair, the healthier the hair, it's gonna look different compared to hair that's you know, like on the ends that have split ends or is coarse, thicker. We do have like various strands of hair in our head. Work with the thicker hair and then work with the thinner hair. It's gonna catch up a lot easier that way compared to if you were to do it the opposite way. Keep in mind how much time the hair dye has been processing on some part of the hair compared to when you started and compared to the last portion that you dye. it's gonna have different times, so I recommend you leave the hair dye in for a full 40 minutes altogether. Here I'm just adding some dimension onto the top portion. I didn't want it too light, so I did it on completely dry hair, and then everything else I ended up wetting. You'll see in a bit, but I did this on completely dry hair and I really saturated it because I did want a dimension. I did want some dimension in there, but I didn't want it to look too obvious, too stripy, too like chunky. So I went in and I kind of like just made sure it was like, you know, very well coated. So when I section off the hair, I do like the zigzag pattern. You might need to do that like quite a few times before you actually commit to it. So again, just before we finish, know the hair dye you're working with, know what dye you're going to be using, the end result you want. Use an ideal formula, which I know I didn't go over that, probably in a different video. Dampen the hair if needed to even out porosity, and last but not least, use enough hair dye, okay? If you don't use enough hair dye, you're gonna tell. There's gonna be a difference. And yeah, so I left it on for a full 40 minutes. And then I'm showing you here the bit of dimension that I left at the top too. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.